His wife opened the door in nothing but a towel, water droplets still clinging to her skin. I was just there to return a book. It's the way she whispered, "I don't want to be alone right now," made my heart stop, and in that moment, I forgot why. I even came. I stood frozen on their front porch, the autumn air suddenly thick and heavy around me. The paperback novel dangled uselessly from my fingers as I watched a single bead of water trace down Noelle's collarbone. My mouth went dry. The scent of her shower-fresh skin, something floral and warm, filled my senses as she stepped. Closer, my heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not with her. Not with my neighbor's wife, Jonah. Her voice was barely audible. My name on her lips like a question and an invitation all at once. I should have turned away, should have mumbled an excuse and hurried back to my empty house next door. But grief and loneliness had hollowed me out over the past year, left me aching for something, anything that felt like connection. Time seemed to slow as I watched her eyes search mine. In that suspended moment, I saw everything. The mutual attraction we'd been fighting, the comfort we'd found in each other's pain, the dangerous line we were about to cross. "Elliot's not home," she added, her fingers tightening on the edge of the towel. The mention of her husband's name should have snapped me back to reality. Instead, it only highlighted his absence. I took a shallow breath, my conscience waging war with the longing that had been building since that stormy night months. I go when we'd nearly kissed. It's a book in my hand. The whole reason I'd come over seemed meaningless now. The hallway stretched dark and inviting. One step forward would change everything. One step back might save us both. Yet I remained, rooted in place, caught in the gravity of her gaze, unable to choose which way to fall. I'm just an average guy who never expected his life to unravel so completely. Before that moment at Noelle's door, I was simply Jonah Miller, the quiet librarian from the brick house with ivy on Maple Street. Nothing remarkable about me. Nothing that would make you look twice. My days had a rhythm to them. Wake before dawn, coffee on the porch, watching fog settle between suburban rooftops. Sort returned books at the Seattle Heights Community Library. Help elderly patrons find large print mysteries. Come home to silence. Repeat, it wasn't always this empty. Just 13 months ago, my wife Claire filled our home with her laugh. This bright, unexpected sound that would burst from her like she couldn't contain it. We'd met in college, married young, built our life brick by brick. I remember how she'd dance while cooking, how she'd leave post-it notes with inside jokes on my lunch bag. The night she died, she just texted me, picking up ice cream on the way home. "Love you." A drunk driver ran a red light 2 blocks from our house. It's just like that. She was gone, and I became the widower next door. Grief changes your perception. Colors fade. Food loses taste. The world keeps spinning while you're stuck in place. I'd wake up reaching for her, find cold sheets instead, and feel my chest cave in all over again. Coworkers meant well with their casseroles and concerned glances, but their pity only highlighted what I'd lost. Most evenings, I'd sit in my living room, surrounded by Claire's books and photos, feeling like a ghost in my own life. "You should come over for dinner sometime," Elliot had said about 3 months after the funeral, catching me at the mailbox. Nothing fancy. Neighbors breaking bread. Elliot Mercer was everything I wasn't confident. Successful. The kind of guy who wore crisp button-downs even on weekends. He was a software engineer for some tech giant, always tapping away at his laptop on their front porch. We'd been casual friends before borrowing lawn tools, nodding hello while taking out trash. He meant well with the invitation. I knew that. But the thought of sitting at their perfect dining table, watching their perfect marriage, made my stomach twist. "Thanks. Maybe sometime," I'd mumbled, clutching bills and junk mail to my chest like armor. I didn't know then how complicated things would become with the Mercers. Didn't know their marriage had cracks running through it like hairline fractures in fine china. From the outside, they seemed ideal. The handsome husband, the beautiful wife. Their blue Craftsman with window boxes spilling bright flowers the first time. I really noticed Noelle was about 2 months after Claire died. I was dragging my garbage bins to the curb when I glanced up at their bay window. She stood there, paintbrush in hand, caught in afternoon light. For a brief moment, our eyes met across the distance. She didn't smile or wave, just looked at me with an expression I couldn't read, but somehow recognized. Later, I'd understand it was loneliness. Noelle wasn't what you'd expect as Elliot's wife. Where he was structured and precise, she was fluid, creative. She taught art at the community center and painted in their spare bedroom, which she'd converted to a studio. Her canvases, landscapes in moody blues and greens, sometimes leaned against their porch railing to dry. Her dark hair was usually piled in a messy knot, paint often speckling her fingers. She seemed to float rather than walk, moved by some internal current I couldn't see. I learned about their loss by accident. 6 months before Claire's accident, the Mercers had lost a baby, their first in the 2nd trimester. Mrs. Dawson, from across the street, mentioned it while bringing me yet another sympathy lasagna. "Such a shame about your wife," she'd said, patting my arm. "Reminds me of poor Noelle next door. It's never quite recovered after losing the baby. Elliot tries, but men don't understand these things, do they?" That explained the shadow I sometimes caught in Noelle's smile. The careful way neighbors asked about her. The absence of children in a neighborhood full of them. Our parallel grief created an unspoken understanding. We'd nod to each other with a different kind of recognition. We were members of the same awful club, people whose lives had split into before and after, people who carried invisible wounds. "She's been different since," Elliot confided once, when we bumped into each other at the hardware store. He fiddled with a pack of light bulbs, not meeting my eyes. Quieter, spends more time with her paintings than with me. I figured it would get better with time, you know. But it's like she's slipping away. He gave a forced laugh. "Sorry, man. Didn't mean to dump that on you." I understood more than he knew. Grief doesn't heal in a straight line. It circles back, ambushes you when you least expect it. I recognized the lost look in Noelle's eyes because I saw it in my mirror every morning. What I didn't recognize, what I couldn't have predicted, was how that shared understanding would evolve into something dangerous. Something that would lead to her standing before me in nothing but a towel, whispering words that would change everything. The night of Claire's funeral remains a blur. Faces murmuring condolences, hands squeezing my shoulder, food I couldn't taste. What stands crystal clear is what happened after everyone left. I sat alone on my front porch steps, tie loosened, staring into darkness. The house behind me felt cavernous, impossible to enter. Rain began to fall, gentle at first, then a steady rhythm on the roof. I didn't move. Couldn't. Water soaked through my suit jacket, plastered my hair to my forehead. I welcomed the cold. It matched the numbness spreading through me. A soft voice broke through my trance. "You'll catch pneumonia." Noelle stood at the bottom of my steps, hair damp from the rain, holding an umbrella she wasn't using. Without waiting for a response, she climbed the steps and settled beside me. From a bag at her feet, she pulled out a thick blanket and draped it over my shoulders. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "There's nothing that helps." I know that. Something in her voice, its raw honesty, cracked my composure. A sob tore from my throat, then another. I bent forward, folding in on myself. Instead of offering empty platitudes, Noelle simply placed her hand on my back and sat with me through the storm, both the one inside me and the one soaking us both. It was a girl, she said quietly, after my sobs subsided. Our baby. We were going to name her Lily. I looked up, surprised by the confession. Everyone expects you to move on, she continued, staring out at the rain. To get over it. They don't understand that some losses change who you are. Her voice cracked. I still talk to her sometimes. Is that crazy? I left Claire a voicemail last night, I admitted, just to hear her greeting. Noelle's eyes met mine, filled with tears and understanding. She reached for my hand, squeezed it once. Nothing romantic, just human connection in our shared darkness. Thank you, I whispered, for not saying it gets better. It doesn't get better, she replied. It just gets ... different. That night marked a shift. We weren't just neighbors anymore. We were confidants. Survivors.spring arrived with cruel beauty, cherry blossoms and daffodils, mocking my continued grief. One evening in April, my doorbell rang. Stood there, a casserole dish in her hands. Elliot's in San Francisco. For a conference, she explained. I made too much food. Thought maybe you'd like company. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. We ate at my kitchen table, chicken pasta she'd made, and talked. Not about loss, but about books I'd been reading. Her latest painting, a funny encounter she'd had at the grocery store. For the first time in months, I laughed. Actually laughed. You have a nice smile, she said suddenly. Should use it more often. Something warm unfurled in my chest. Not quite happiness, but its distant cousin. When she left that night, our hug lasted a beat longer than necessary. I felt her heartbeat against mine, caught the scent of her perfume, something light, with hints of vanilla. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, unsettled by how alive I suddenly felt. The dinner became a pattern whenever Elliot traveled. Nothing inappropriate, just two lonely people sharing meals and conversation. We'd watch old movies, discuss art, argue playfully about whether libraries would survive the digital age. Sometimes our hands would brush while washing dishes. We'd both pull away quickly, pretend it didn't happen, until the night of the summer. Storm. Thunder shook the windows of my house as rain lashed against the glass. Power had gone out across the neighborhood, leaving me reading by candlelight. The pounding at my door startled me, urgent, almost desperate. Noelle stood on my doorstep, soaked through, eyes wide. The power's out and a crack of thunder. Cut her off, making her flinch. I hate storms. Always have. Elliot's in Chicago and I just come in, I said, stepping aside. She hurried past me, shivering. I grabbed a towel from the bathroom, handed it to her without meeting her eyes. While she dried her hair, I built a small fire in the fireplace and found a dry sweatshirt she could change into. We huddled on the couch, respectable distance between us, watching the flames dance. Each lightning flash illuminated her profile, the curve of her cheek, the line of her throat. I tried not to stare, failed miserably. Do you think it's possible to be lonely even when you're not alone? She asked suddenly. Yes, I answered, too quickly. I think that's the worst kind. She turned to face me, firelight catching in her eyes. Elliot and I barely talk anymore. It's not about anything real. After we lost the baby, ... She swallowed hard. It's like we're strangers who happen to share a house. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. Despite everything, I liked Elliot. Hated the thought of either of them hurting. Sometimes I think she stopped herself, shook her head. Never mind. What? Sometimes I think you're the only person who sees. Me, she whispered. The real me. My heart stumbled in my chest. A log shifted in the fire, sending sparks up the chimney. Outside, thunder rumbled, closer now. Noelle, I began, not sure what I was going to say. She moved then, closing the distance between us on the couch. Her hand found mine, fingers intertwining. I should have pulled away, should have reminded us both of all the reasons this was wrong. Instead, I found myself leaning toward her, drawn by something stronger than conscience. Our foreheads touched. I could feel her breath on my lips, count her eyelashes. We hovered there in that dangerous space between intention and action. My hand rose to her cheek, thumb brushing against her skin. Her eyes fluttered closed. A deafening crack of thunder broke the spell. We jumped apart as if burned. Noelle stood quickly, hugging herself. "I should go," she said, voice shaking. "Storm is passing." She gathered her things, avoiding my eyes. "Thank you for ... I should go." She fled into the rain, leaving me with the ghost of what almost happened. That night, I lay awake for hours, watching lightning illuminate my ceiling, replaying the moment over and over, telling myself it was better this way, knowing I was lying. After that night, we both retreated. Our interactions became carefully casual, brief waves across the yard. Polite small talk about the weather. We constructed an elaborate dance of avoidance, changing our routines to minimize accidental meetings. But even as we maintained physical distance, something had fundamentally shifted between us. Each avoided glance only heightened the awareness. Each careful greeting vibrated with unspoken tension. I caught myself watching for her silhouette in the studio window. She lingered at her mailbox when I walked past. We were planets in carefully calculated orbits, terrified of collision, unable to escape each other's gravity, and then came that autumn afternoon. The paperback novel in my hand, some thriller Elliot had insisted I read, was just an excuse. I'd finished it weeks ago, but kept finding reasons not to return it. Deep down, I knew why. Returning it meant removing my last legitimate reason. To knock on their door, I almost talked myself out of it. Almost left the book on my coffee table for another week. But some restless energy propelled me across the yard, up their porch steps, to their front door. My knuckles rapped against the wood before I could reconsider. Footsteps approached. The door swung open. And there she stood. Her dark hair was wet, clinging to her neck in damp tendrils. The white towel was wrapped tightly around her body, knotted. Above her chest, water droplets clung to her bare shoulders, catching light. Her eyes widened in surprise, then something else, something that made my pulse quicken. "Jonah," she said, my name like a sigh. "I brought back Elliot's book," I managed, holding up the novel like a shield. "I can come back later, if no." She said quickly, stepping back, "Come in." I hesitated at the threshold. Entering felt like crossing a line we couldn't uncross. She must have read my thoughts because she added, "Please, I don't want to be alone right now." Her whisper hung between us, an admission and an invitation. The book dangled forgotten from my fingers as I stepped inside. She closed the door, softly, leaving us standing in the dim foyer. Close enough that I could smell her shower-fresh scent, see the pulse fluttering at her throat. "Where's Elliot?" I asked, voice hoarse. "Work conference in Portland. He'll be back tomorrow." She didn't move away. Or at least, that's what he told me. "What do you mean?" Her laugh was hollow. "Last month, I found text messages from someone named Vanessa, his colleague. She made air quotes with her fingers. They've been meeting up during these conferences for almost a year." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Had no idea. No one does. We maintained the perfect facade. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. That's the worst part. I'm not even angry anymore. Just ... empty. My mind raced, recalibrating everything I thought I knew. Elliot's late nights, his extended business trips, the growing distance Noelle had described. It painted a completely different picture than I'd imagined. "Why stay?" I asked quietly. She looked down, fingers fidgeting with the edge of her towel. "Habit? Fear? I don't know anymore. After the baby, we just ... stopped trying." Both retreated to our separate corners. He found comfort elsewhere. Her eyes lifted to mine, and I found it with you. My heart pounded so loudly, I was certain she could hear it. "Noelle, we haven't, not physically, but emotionally." She stepped closer. "You've been more present for me than my husband has in years. You listen, you see me." Her hand reached out, tentatively touching my chest, right above my heart. "Tell me you don't feel this too." I couldn't lie, not to her, not to myself. I do. God help me, I do. "But it's wrong. You're married, and Claire would want you to be happy," she finished softly. "Just like my baby would want me to live, not just exist." Her fingers curled against my shirt. "I'm not asking for promises, Jonah. I'm just asking for right now." Something broke loose inside me, a dam holding back all the longing, the need, the crushing loneliness of the past year. My hand covered hers, pressing it more firmly against my chest. "I've thought about this," I confessed, voice barely audible. "About you, about us, more than I should." Her free hand rose to my face, palm against my cheek. I leaned into her touch, eyes closing briefly. When I opened them, her face was tilted up toward mine, lips parted slightly. "We can stop," she whispered, though everything in her expression said otherwise. "Walk away right now. Go back to polite waves and small talk." We both knew we were past that point, had been for months. My hand slid to her waist, feeling the dampness of the towel, the warmth of her skin beneath. "I don't want to stop," I admitted. She rose on tiptoes, bringing our faces level. "Then don't." The first touch of her lips against mine was gentle, questioning. A heartbeat passed, a moment of hesitation, of final restraint. Then something ignited between us. The kiss deepened, hungry and desperate. My arms encircled her, pulling her against me, feeling her heart race against mine, hands tangled in my hair, urgent, as if she'd been waiting forever for this moment. I backed her against the wall, both of us breathless. Her skin was damp beneath my fingers as they traced her shoulders, her collarbone. The scent of her clean skin and something uniquely her filled my senses. She gasped as my lips found her neck, the spot just below her ear. "Jonah," she breathed, her voice catching. "I've wanted this for so long." The confession sent heat coursing through me. I captured her mouth again, pouring months of suppressed desire into the kiss. Her fingers fumbled with the buttons of my shirt, trembling slightly. I covered her hand with mine, slowing her down. "Are you sure?" I asked, pressing my forehead to hers. Her eyes met mine, clear and certain. "I haven't been sure of anything in years, except this, except you." The towel had loosened during our embrace, slipping slightly. She didn't fix it, just held my gaze with newfound boldness. In that moment, she wasn't my neighbor's wife or the woman I'd comforted through grief. She was simply Noelle, beautiful, complicated, alive, choosing me. I kissed her again, slower this time, savoring the taste of her, the soft sounds she made. Her body molded against mine, fitting perfectly. For the first time since Claire died, I felt fully present in my skin, awakened from a long, cold sleep. "Stay with me," she whispered against my lips. "Just for now." The world narrowed to this, her hands on my skin, her breath mingling with mine, the promise of where this was leading. Everything else fell away. The guilt, the should-nots, the complicated web of loyalties and betrayals. There was only this moment, this woman, this unexpected chance to feel something other than loss. The sharp crunch of gravel shattered our private universe. We froze, lips still touching, breath suspended. Through the frosted glass beside the door, headlights swept across the wall, bright, intrusive beams that cut through our haze of desire. A car door slammed, the sound like a gunshot in the quiet house. Noelle pushed against my chest, panic replacing passion in her eyes. "It's Elliot," she whispered, voice strangled. "He's not supposed to be home until tomorrow." Reality crashed back with brutal force. I was in my neighbor's house, kissing his wife, her body barely covered by a slipping towel, my shirt half unbuttoned. The enormity of what we'd done, what we'd been about to do, hit me like a physical blow. "God," I choked out, stumbling back. My hands shook as I frantically rebuttoned my shirt. "Noelle, not now," she hissed, clutching her towel. Tighter. Her eyes darted around the foyer, seeking escape routes. "You need to leave, now." "How?" "He's at the front door." Footsteps crunched on the walkway, getting closer. We had seconds, not minutes. "The back door," she decided, grabbing my arm. "Through the kitchen, hurry." I snatched Elliot's book from where it had fallen to the floor and followed her through the dim hallway. My heart hammered against my ribs, guilt and fear making it hard to breathe. Behind us, a key scraped in the lock. The front door began to open. We reached the kitchen just as Elliot called out, "Noelle, your car's here, but all the lights are off. You home?" She pushed me toward the back door, eyes wild with fear. "Go," she mouthed silently. I reached for the handle, then hesitated, turning back. "Noelle, what are we later?" she whispered fiercely. "Just go." I slipped outside into the gathering dusk, pulling the door shut as quietly as possible. Through the kitchen window, I caught a glimpse of Noelle hurrying back toward the front of the house, calling out in a remarkably steady voice, "In the shower, honey? Didn't expect you tonight." Crouching low, I crept along the side of their house, staying in the shadows of their hedge. My legs felt hollow, my chest tight. The taste of Noelle lingered on my lips, contrasting sharply with the acid burn of shame rising in my throat. What had we done? I made it back to my own house unseen, locking the door behind me as if I could lock out the consequences of my actions. I sank onto my couch in the dark, still clutching Elliot's forgotten book. The house felt different somehow, smaller, accusatory. Claire's photos watched me from the mantel, her smile unchanged but suddenly seeming sad, disappointed. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the empty room, unsure who I was apologizing to. Claire, Elliot, myself, or some abstract moral code I just shattered. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Noelle. "He came back early. Surprise anniversary dinner. We need to talk. Not now. Tomorrow. Anniversary." The word landed like a blow. They were married. Whatever problems they had, whatever betrayals Elliot might have committed, they were husband and wife. And I had crossed a line I'd always sworn I never would. Yet even as guilt consumed me, I couldn't deny the truth. For those brief, stolen moments in Noelle's arms, I'd felt alive again. The numbness that had encased me since Claire's death had cracked open, revealing the man underneath, a man capable of feeling, wanting, of reaching for connection. Was that worth the cost? The potential destruction of a marriage, the betrayal of a friendship, the tarnishing of Claire's memory. I had no answers, only questions that circled like hungry wolves. Outside my window, I could see lights coming on in the Mercer's house. Normal, domestic lights that gave no hint of the storm that had just been unleashed inside those walls, inside all of us, whatever happened next. One thing was clear. There was no going back. That threshold we'd crossed in their foyer had changed everything. For better or worse, we were in this now, all three of us caught in a web of desire, betrayal, and consequences none of us had fully anticipated. Morning arrived with cruel brightness, sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to close. I hadn't slept, just stared at the ceiling all night, replaying every moment with Noelle, every kiss, every whispered word. My phone remained silent. No more texts after her brief message about the anniversary dinner. I moved through my morning routine like a sleepwalker: coffee, shower, clean clothes. Through my kitchen window, I watched Elliot back his car out of their driveway, briefcase on the passenger seat. He paused, seemingly looking toward my house. Did he know? Had Noelle confessed? My stomach twisted as he sat there for what felt like eternity. Then he drove away. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Noelle, can you come over? We need to talk." It's 5 words, both invitation and warning. I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the screen. What was I walking into? Apologies, regrets, or something else entirely? The right thing would be to end it now. Send a text saying we'd made a mistake. Return to being just neighbors with a careful distance between us. The right thing would be simple, clean, moral. I found myself crossing my yard, climbing their porch steps, knocking on their door, the same door where everything had changed just yesterday. She opened it immediately, as if she'd been waiting. No towel this time, just jeans and a simple blue sweater, hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her eyes were red-rimmed, face pale. "Come in," she said quietly. I followed her to their living room, noticing details I'd overlooked before: the lack of photos of them together, the separate reading chairs positioned at opposite ends of the room, the subtle signs of lives being lived in parallel rather than together. We sat on the couch, a careful space between us. For a long moment, neither spoke. "I didn't tell him," she finally said, breaking the silence. "About us." Relief flooded me, followed immediately by shame at feeling relieved. "Noelle, about yesterday, I don't regret it," she interrupted, her eyes meeting mine. "I should, but I don't." Her directness caught me off guard. "What happened with the anniversary dinner?" A bitter smile twisted her lips. There was no dinner. He came home early because his conference ended when his girlfriend had to leave unexpectedly. She laughed without humor. He doesn't even try to hide it anymore, just assumes I won't question him. Canes clenched into fists. "Noelle, I'm sorry." "For which part? Kissing me or getting caught?" The question hung between us, demanding honesty, for complicating your life, not for kissing you. She moved closer on the couch, her knee touching mine. "You made me feel something besides numb, besides invisible. How can that be wrong?" "Because you're married," I said, the words tasting ashy in my mouth. "Because Elliot was my friend. And what about what Elliot did? What he's still doing?" Anger flashed in her eyes. "Where's his loyalty? His friendship to you?" I had no answer for that. The moral high ground felt increasingly unstable beneath my feet. She took my hand, fingers intertwining with mine. "I'm not asking you to save me, Jonah. I need to figure out my marriage, stay or go on my own terms. But yesterday, yesterday, reminded me I'm still alive, still capable of feeling something real." I understood exactly what she meant. That was the terrible beauty of what had happened between us. Not just desire, but awakening, resurrection. "So what happens now?" I asked, voice low. She squeezed my hand. "I don't know. I just know I can't go back to pretending. With Elliot, with you, with myself." Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Elliot's name flashed on the screen. She glanced at it, then back at me, a question in her eyes. Answer it, I said. We need time to figure this out. All of us. She nodded, releasing my hand to reach for the phone. Before she answered, she looked at me one last time. Whatever happens next, I want you to know something. You've helped me remember who I am, who I could be again. I stood, giving her privacy, for the call. At the door, I paused, watching her press the phone to her ear, her back straight, resolve in her posture. Whatever she decided about her marriage, about us, she would face it with newfound strength. Walking back to my empty house, I felt strangely lighter. Not because the situation was resolved, it was messier than ever, but because for the first time since Claire died, I was fully engaged with life again, feeling everything, the guilt, the desire, the fear, the hope. The future remained. Unwritten, but at least I was awake to experience it. What happens when forbidden desire collides with loyalty? When grief meets awakening? When masks fall away and we're forced to confront who we really are? Have you ever stood at such a crossroads? Heart pulling you one way, conscience another. Like this video if you've ever felt torn between what feels right and what feels necessary. Comment below with how you think this story continues. Does Noelle leave Elliot? Does Jonah walk away? Or do they find another path entirely? Subscribe. 2 Heartside Tales for more stories that explore the complicated, messy truth of human hearts and the choices that define us. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that don't end with neat answers, but with honest questions.